Well, if there's an old video editing PC, then conversely there must be a new video editing PC. There's also a current video editing PC. Most of my editing, nearly all of it actually, takes place on Macintosh computers using iMovie 06. I did get iMovie 08 with one of my systems, and I gave it the old college try, but I just couldn't do it. The timeline in particular was just about impossible to do fine-grained edits. I much prefer the timeline-based approach of iMovie 06, as well as the capabilities that it has over the later versions of iMovie. And in fact, when iMovie 08 and when it first came out, the opposition was so vocal that Apple actually said, well, if you really want iMovie 06 and that kind of feature set, then we'll make iMovie 06 available as a download for you. Well, one of the things that I've been wanting to play with, and I've never gotten around to doing it, was to build a PC running Sony Vegas for video editing. I always wanted to try that software, as well as some of the other popular PC-only tools like Virtual Dub and AVSynth and the plugins that go with those. But I've never gotten around to doing it. This is the system that I built for the purpose. Centers on an AMD Phenom triple-core processor on an ASUS M2A VM motherboard. This machine was going to be equipped to handle all kinds of video capture, you know, anything, because at first I was shooting most of my videos, if not all of them, again, with a point-and-shoot digital camera. My first camera being an Olympus and the second one being the Panasonic Lumix that I used for a very long time before I got this Sony Handycam that I'm shooting with now. Anyway, I wanted this thing to be able to handle video over a wide range of formats, both digital and analog alike. And so I put a FireWire card in it. It has high-speed USB ports. I thought about getting a multi-USB card reader, but I never did that. And I also put in a VisionTech branded ATI television tuner card. And this does have a composite video input on it. There's a pigtail that I've got that allows you to hook it up. It's a PCI Express X1 card, and works fine, works very well for the purpose, although VisionTech managed to go out of business and then reincarnate themselves at some point. But I've got the drivers and the software for the card, so it really doesn't matter what the manufacturer is up to. Again, this card has no, well, it does have hardware acceleration for one thing. It does have hardware acceleration for direct MPEG encoding of an analog video stream from either the TV tuner or the composite inputs. But if you're pulling in video from a source, you probably much rather would deal with uncompressed video, or video that actually uses a compression system where each frame of the video is saved as a full frame, as opposed to MPEG compression, which actually bases every now and again. MPEG compression has a keyframe that contains all the details of a complete frame of video, but every other frame is just of the differences from the last keyframe that there was. And so editing MPEG video can be a difficult proposition, although there's certainly software that can do it. And that's to say nothing of the penalty that you suffer from editing already compressed video and then compressing it again, which is something you want to try to avoid. Anyway, I put together this computer. This is an Antec P182B case. I have a boot drive in here, a Samsung Serial ATA drive. The power supply is a fairly serious PC power and cooling silencer, 750 watt model. And you see there's a lot of cables that I didn't end up using. The idea was to have no question that this machine would have enough of a power supply to carry out the work asked of it, and it's a fair argument to say that PC power and cooling is the Cadillac of computer power supplies. They have the premium products, and I would say they stand head and shoulders above every other power supply on the market out there, no matter how good, because not only have they been in business for a long time, but that thing is industrial strength overbuilt. It is extremely heavy compared to any other 750 or larger wattage supply that I have ever held. The motherboard works, the computer works, but this is why I never phased it in as my actual video editing computer. The onboard sound on the motherboard is defective. And while I might at some point go ahead and just put a sound card in there, my experiences with onboard motherboard sound, at least any halfway recent incarnation of it, I remember the first AC97 sound systems as not being all that good, especially the ones built off the analog SoundMax solution, but it seems like the later ones, and especially the Realtek chips, seem to do a pretty good job. But the sound on this motherboard is screwed up. The board is still under warranty and will be until about October of this year, So I guess I ought to go ahead and submit it for an RMA return and replacement. I started to do that and I just never followed through with it. I have 4 gigabytes of DDR2. I believe this is PC2 5300 memory. It's Crucial Ballistics, which is ballistics tracer, which is kind of ridiculous bling, if you will, for the average computer. It lights up. It actually has illuminating lights on it that supposedly indicate memory accesses and things like that, which you really don't need, but it was on sale at the time, and so I just went ahead and put it in there just because I thought it looked cool, and it was only a couple bucks more than the conventional boring parts at the time. Was going to have a rack of hard drives in here running in a RAID 0 just as a scratch pad for use while I was video editing, and then everything else would go out to some kind of permanent external storage like a FreeNAS device or a number of USB external hard drives, something along those lines. But again, I never did it. Now let's go around here to the front. Take a look at this. You can see this is a nice looking case. I really like the look of this Antec P182. In fact, I have another one over at the Roach Palace that I put a Supermicro P8 SCT server board in and built a very nice Linux box out of. Maybe I'll talk about that at some point. You can see I have 2 optical drives in here. One of them is a Samsung Super Writemaster with LightScribe, and the other one is a Pioneer DVD RW drive. And it has a different kind of disc marking technology. I think Yamaha refers to it as disc tattoo or something like that. Didn't really matter to me. I've barely used my LightScribe capable drives because I just don't have 20 minutes to label a disc when 5 seconds with a permanent marker will do, although it is a cool technology to play with. And then of course down here, all of my computer builds get a 3.5-inch floppy drive. There's front panel USB ports. And these plates right here actually have air filters behind them, and theoretically at least you could install a fan back there. It's shaped appropriately and has the screw holes, but there really doesn't seem to be enough room to put a proper fan back there, so I'm not sure what they had in mind when they were doing that. You can kind of see the Samsung hard drive that's in there all by itself, but what I really need to do is finish building this system and taking it for a spin, because even if I didn't end up using it for video editing, it's still a heck of a nice machine. It would make a very nice workstation. I started putting this together in 2009, and I guess when I discovered the sound was bad, I just kind of lost interest at the time. I didn't feel like taking it all the way apart again. But maybe I will. I'd certainly like to get that board replaced with one that has properly functioning sound, and maybe give this machine a little bit of a spin. Certainly finish putting it back together and see what I think of it. But there's the story behind my new video editing PC to go with the old video editing PC.